Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in Los Angeles, California. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're well, happy, healthy, and having some fun. I hope you're staying safe, but enjoying your time this weekend. Today in Critter Chat, and for this very special Catterday, we're going to talk about one of the most beautiful cats in the world, and one that surprisingly lives pretty close to most of us. Today we're talking about ocelots. Ocelots are a medium-sized cat. They have very dynamic coat patterns. They have spots, they have stripes, they have rosettes, which is a spot with a hollow center. They have white on their bellies, they have black on their legs, they have rings around their tails, and the rest of their coat is a golden yellow color. Ocelots are found in the Americas, from northern Argentina through all the rest of South America, every country in South America except Chile. Throughout Central America, all the way up through, and then along both coastlines of Mexico. They're not present in the middle of Mexico, but along the Gulf Coast and along the Pacific side through the Gulf of California, through Baja, and just a tiny bit up into the United States. In Texas, they have a bit of a population, and they're on rare occasions seen in the very southern portion of Arizona. They typically live in tropical forest, so their population is stronger. There's more of them in places like the middle of the Amazon. So in Brazil, in some of the forests throughout South America and into Central America, that's kind of where the most of them live. But some of them live in other areas too, including wetlands. That's where they live in Texas along the Rio Grande River. In grasslands in northern Argentina, that's what the habitat there is like. And of course in deserts like northern Mexico and southern Arizona. And in much of those areas, they also live in the mountainous areas. But in all of those areas, they have one thing in common. They need a lot of vegetation. They need a lot of trees. They really like to stay covered up. And with their coat being the way that it is, it really camouflages them when they're in a shady area where there's dappled sunlight. So sunlight coming through in patches helps them to camouflage very well into their surroundings. They typically are sleepers during the daytime. In cooler areas of their range, or if it's cooler weather or rainy weather, they may be more crepuscular, dawn and dusk active. But throughout much of their range, they are nocturnal or active at night. They can be comfortable on the ground or up in the trees. Typically, they sleep up in the trees to kind of be out of the way of anything bigger coming through. And they will occasionally hunt in the trees. But they will also stay on the ground, and they're capable of hunting on the ground. They can also be pretty good swimmers. Cats aren't very well documented in water, but ocelots are a cat that is capable of swimming, although they don't seem to like it as much as, like, say, a fishing cat or a jaguar or a tiger. They are very good at being able to cross bodies of water when they need to. They are a medium-sized cat, so they're kind of double the size of your typical house cat. They range in length from about 29 inches to about 40 inches. So just shy of 3 feet up to about 3.5 feet in length. They also have tails about 10 to 16 inches long, so not a super long tail. It barely touches the ground kind of as they walk. And then in weight, they range from about 15 pounds up to 35 pounds. Typically, males are longer and weigh more than the females. And throughout their range, different weights and lengths kind of are more common in certain areas. The cats in really hot areas tend to be a little bit smaller. Same with the cats who live in like very forested areas, whereas the cats that live in more of a mountainous area are a bit bigger. They have very defined, marked territories, and a male's territory will overlap the territories of 4 or 5 different females and come up against the border of other males' territories. And they patrol their territory, so they go around the edges and they scratch on different trees or on different plants. They'll mark their territories by peeing on them and by pooping on them, leaving their poop in a very obvious place so that others will smell it and see it as they come through. In zoos, when they have ocelots, you can always smell that you're getting closer to an ocelot exhibit before you ever get to it. Or at least I can. I have a good sense of smell. And they're pretty stinky cats because they do mark so much with their urine. When a male and a female find each other, they do have some vocal communications. They typically make kind of this roaring, meowing yowl sound. They can hiss, they can kind of make some other soft chuffing and purring kind of sounds. They don't roar. They don't roar like a lion or a jaguar or a tiger does. But when a male and a female find each other, they will breed, and then he will be on his way. He has no further involvement in anything about having babies. So she is a single mom. Her pregnancy or her gestation is about 2.5 months, kind of 70 to 80 days. And then she will give birth to 1 to up to as many as 4 kittens. Typically 2 is the case. 1 or 2, actually. They typically have 1 if it's their first litter, and then 2 kind of in continuing litters after that. Each ocelot has a very unique coat pattern. In fact, even the right side of the cat looks different than the left side. It's not symmetrical. So it's very easy to identify individuals once you learn how their coat pattern works. And they can easily be identified by photograph because of that. When she has her kittens, they are small. They weigh between 7 and 12 ounces, so about 1/2 pound to about 3/4 of a pound. They're little guys. And she'll have them in a den, typically like a hollow log, maybe a little cave, or a thicket where there's lots of brush together. And she will sometimes move them multiple times if she doesn't feel safe, or if she feels there's a lot of other animals around that may cause them harm. She'll pick them up and move them around different den sites. The babies, when they're born, are kind of gray in color, super fluffy, but they do have their spots and stripes from the moment they're born. And they have very dark limbs when they're little, and then those start to lighten up as they get a little older. Like most cats, they are born pretty helpless, and then at about 2 weeks, their eyes open. And baby ocelots, like some of the other baby cats, have blue eyes, and then that changes to a darker color when they're about 3 months old. At about 3 weeks old, they start walking, but they'll stay really close to the den site while their mom is out hunting. They'll start eating some of the solid foods between 4 and 6 weeks. And then at about 3 months old, they start to go with their mom on the hunts, kind of learning how to follow her and what it is they're looking for. By about 8 months old, they are able to hunt on their own and sometimes start living on their own. But occasionally they'll stick around in their mom's territory for as long as possibly 2 years if it's another female, just to kind of have some safety until they get a little bit bigger before they move out entirely on their own. In the wild, they can live to be about 10 years old. In a zoo setting, they can definitely live to be about 13 or 14 years old, with the record holder being about 20 years. So they can live a bit longer in zoos, again, with medical attention and not having to worry about hunting their food and worrying about competition or predators. Because of their size, there are things that will definitely try to eat them, including larger cats. Both mountain lions or cougars and jaguars live throughout much of their range. And if those bigger cats come across an ocelot, they're going to try to kill it because it is somewhat competition for them, and it's still just another carnivore in their area. In most of their area, they also will have things like coyotes. In some areas, they would also have other carnivores that may be around, some bears. that would also try to maybe take them out. They also have to worry about large snakes, particularly down in the Amazon where there's anacondas and large boa constrictors. They would definitely go after the babies. And then, of course, the harpy eagle, the big notorious eagle in Central and South America that will grab just about anything it can out of a tree with its huge talons, including ocelots. Ocelots are excellent hunters. They can either ambush hunt or wait for something to come by, like along a trail or near a water source, or occasionally they'll stalk things on their own. But they'll go after things like rodents, rabbits, babies of larger mammals, so baby deer, baby peccaries, some of the other large rodents in South America, maybe like a capybara. They will go after birds, they'll go after reptiles, they'll go after fish. So a wide variety of things to eat. I guess they're pretty picky about the texture of their food though, because they will almost always pick clean any feathers or fur or scales off of whatever they're eating before they eat it. They have a very rough tongue, like sandpaper, to help remove any of that extra hair or scales or feathers to get rid of that. They have excellent eyesight. They have that night vision that cats have so famously, so they can see really well in night, which is also very important to them since they are mostly nighttime hunters. Oh, they'll also go after monkeys. Sometimes monkeys, if they're in a big social group, can chase away an ocelot because it's not all that much bigger than them. And if they're loud enough, the ocelot won't be able to sneak up on them, so that happens quite often with them too. They also have a good sense of smell, not as good as like a dog's sense of smell, but a better sense of smell than we have, and pretty good hearing too. So they are pretty good at stealthily moving through their forest environment. Ocelots are currently listed as least concern, which is very reassuring for their population, but that has not always been the case. During the earlier 1900s, their coats were highly valued in clothing, and fur trade for ocelots was incredible, with tons of people hunting and trapping them. Ocelots actually used to live throughout a larger portion of the United States. They lived from Texas all the way over through Louisiana, Alabama, and maybe even into Florida. They think that they were hunted to extinction in those other states until they just barely live a little bit right on the Texas-Mexico border now. They were trapped for their furs and hunted for their furs up until the 1970s, when the fur trade on ocelots was officially banned by an international union called CITES, the Convention of International Trade on Endangered Species is what that stands for. And they have full protection under that. And under the United States Endangered Species Act, they are considered an endangered species because their population in the US portion of their range is so dramatically low. It's estimated that there are about 80 cats in Texas and only a handful, like 5 or less, in Arizona. So pretty rare in the US. But they, like I said, they have a strong population in the Amazon. So down in South America, they're pretty well off. And then it kind of thins out, both going north and south from there. Their biggest threat today is habitat loss. They really rely on living in an area with trees. They go up into the trees for their own safety. They also need to be able to hunt and live around vegetative cover to be able to sneak up on their prey. They don't do well in open spaces and will usually avoid it. So they definitely live kind of more along rivers and places where trees grow, even if it's in a desert environment. So they also struggle when things like roads and human development happen around cities. They definitely start to move out and disappear from those areas. One of the things that is definitely a threat to them and their potential survival in the US is the border wall that has been proposed and in some cases started to be built between the United States and Mexico. I'll be posting some more information about that. In Arizona in particular, they don't have a breeding population in the United States, and so the ocelots that come into the US are largely males and pretty much come from a breeding population in Mexico, looking to establish territories further north. And so if a border wall is built, they will be locked out of the United States or trapped in the United States without access to breeding partners, and will eventually become extinct in the state of Arizona. In Texas, it's a similar fate. Although they have a bit of a stronger population, they are already showing signs of being potentially inbred in that population because it is fragmented and isolated from the population further south in Mexico, as human development along the Mexican and Texas border has caused isolation in many of those areas. I always like to talk a little bit about my experiences with the animals that I feature. During my time working in Phoenix, in the Phoenix Zoo, I worked there for 7 years from 2006 until 2013. During that time was the time that they were rediscovered in Arizona, which was really exciting. We had an ocelot who lived at the zoo. He had been born in captivity at another zoo, and he was kind of an ambassador of his species. He was really fun to watch, work with enrichment and things like that. But the Phoenix Zoo's conservation program helped to actually fund some cameras that were motion activated that went out into the wildlands of southern Arizona and actually helped document the ocelot's return to Arizona, which was really exciting because we were able to view those images before they were made public. And it was kind of a kudos that we were helping protect land and space and actual animals that really needed our help to reestablish themselves in a state where they had lived once before. During my time at the Los Angeles Zoo, we actually had a breeding pair of ocelots, and in 2018, there were 2 kittens born to first-time mom and dad there, and it was really fun to watch them grow up. I'll share a video of them later today on the Facebook page. Towards the end of their time in Los Angeles, although I was not a carnivore keeper, I was being cross-trained in another section where the kittens were living before they shipped off to other zoos. So I did get to work with them just a tiny bit before they left Los Angeles. They also have had a new baby born this year in 2020. He was born in January, but was behind the scenes bonding with his mom, kind of staying in that den space for the first couple of months of the year, and didn't come out on exhibit until, unfortunately, the zoo had closed because of the coronavirus pandemic. So he has never really been viewed by the public, as the Los Angeles Zoo has remained closed throughout that time. But they do have some video footage of him, and I'll be posting that on the Facebook page as well. So he's the younger brother of the 2 that I worked with earlier in my time as a keeper at the Los Angeles Zoo. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today about ocelots. They are definitely a very beautiful and intriguing cat. Again, just slightly larger than a house cat, but capable of hunting pretty great things in the forest of Central and South America, and existing a bit in the United States. I'll also post an article about their return to the US and some of the documentation that they've seen in the United States with them. As always, be happy, be healthy, have fun, stay safe, and feel free to like, follow, subscribe, and share any of my content across Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on my website at jeremythezoonerd.com. I'll be back on Monday with another critter chat, so have a great weekend. Take care.